Welcome to the Financial Dads Podcast with Paul Fagan and Jody Fisher. This is the podcast for all dads who want to succeed with life's topics, especially related to family and finances. Now here's my dad, Paul Fagan.
Hey Jody, how you doing?
Hello, Paul. How are you?
I'm doing well. Fantastic.
Yeah, this has been a challenging week for our country, I think, and you know we want to stick to the topic of financial dads here and talk about what we talk about, but we just want to take a quick moment out to say that it acknowledge the fact that it's been a challenging week for the country, and I personally hope that we're at a point where we start to see some change. We accomplish a lot more through love than hate.
Very cool. Very cool. Yes, I it was beautifully put and a good call out. And I'm also looking at some of our notes. Are you contemplating the vacation, the annual?
Well, yeah. Speaking of love, it's no secret that we have a lot of love for the state of Maine, and we were batting back and forth around what we're going to do this year, and we decided, and shifting back to the whole point of financial dads, we did put down the deposit on the Maine vacation house this year, so we're going to give it a shot. We're gonna head up to Maine in the month of August, so we'll let you know how that goes.
Oh, good for you. I just jotted a note down for myself. Maybe I have to do our annual trip to Vermont, maybe a modified version of it, but you might have me motivated now to, I think things are opening up a little bit. It's feeling a little different. I'm not sure if it's truly different. I don't know if there's anything from a virus scientific perspective that's different between now and 3 weeks ago or a month ago, but the vibe is feeling a little easier. I'm not sure why, but I might take your lead and maybe look at booking our annual Vermont trip. And if I tell the kids that we're going to go to Vermont again, I think they'd be up for it. So that would be a good way to kind of put a stamp on the weekend and have something to look forward to. So I'll keep you posted.
Yeah, our perspective was kind of like, okay, it's the beginning of June. We got June, July, and August before whatever happens in September, right? And so are we really going to spend 3 months sitting around the house just doing the same hamster wheel of things that we've been doing for the last 3 months? Or are we going to try something different? And with camps getting canceled this week, which they did for our kids, we just figured we had to do something here, and we can be responsible enough in that environment that we go to in Maine to keep the proper distance, to be careful, and all those other kind of things that we figured we're going to go for it. So that's what we're doing.
Today's topic is an interesting one. We haven't done this before. It's talking about family and personal finances and having kids, right? So I think that for me, it's an interesting one because we neglected to kind of talk about it. Okay, you're planning to have a baby's on the way. What do you do? So we're going to touch upon some of those topics today. So, but before we jump into the main topic, let's check out some of the news that we saw this week. The first news story is on CNBC, and the headline is, "Here's how to make your money work harder for you in the coronavirus crash." So it's everything we've been talking about, Jody, and when I look at the highlights of the article, it says everything we've been touting, and that is, it says count all your beans. So make sure you know what you owe. This comes down to the budget, and it talks about GOT funds, which of course is the emergency fund, and making sure you have that disaster budget in place and know where your money is. And then there's this whole concept, they call it KISS outsourcing goodbye. So if you're home and you have more time, you should be doing more of your own house cleaning, which we do. We've never had someone come in to help clean the house with any regularity whatsoever. Ad hoc, once a year, we'd bring somebody in for a weekend just to clean the place out. But most of the time, we do the heavy lift of all the house cleaning. The yard work, I leave to the professionals. I don't do any of that myself other than snow removal, just because I just don't think I used to mow my own lawn when I was a kid. My father used to make me go mow the lawn, and it's just something I wasn't into. So I'd rather have somebody do it and not have my neighbors look at me cross-eyed every 3 weeks when I cut the beast of a forest that would be out there if I was in charge of doing it. But then also the delivery services. So I think people are feeling pressured around delivery service, but people can negate those and learn how to cook. So it talks about that in the article. Jody, what was your take on this article?
Yeah, overall, I think that this came down to assessing what you have, getting rid of what you don't need, and just making sure that you're on top of every dollar you spend. And the execution of that is different for every household. I think on the flip side of that is having that written budget shows you what you can still afford to spend. Being in control of your household budget, to me, is the best form of financial power. Knowing what you've got coming in, knowing what you're obligated to spend on the going outside, and then knowing what's left over for optional purchases. Everything from something fun for the kids or a special, eat out night, to, Paul, what you said, like, do I have to cut back on the landscaping bill? I'm in the same boat. I don't want to spend 4 hours of my Sunday afternoons cutting my lawn. I pay a guy $42 a week to come and cut the lawn in 15 minutes, and it's finished. And it looks way better to do it anyway.
Oh, absolutely. I have a funny story about that. Right? Can I jump in on a funny story about that?
Go ahead.
I was 15, 16. I was working at Rye Playland. This is how much I did not like to cut the lawn. So I was working a lot that summer with Will Powell, right? That's where I met Will. He was listening to the last podcast.
You Will, right? Go ahead.
So I was, for a 15-year-old kid, I was doing pretty well. I was working 40, 50, 60 hours a week. The money per hour was pretty good, etc. And on Mondays, when Playland was closed, I would have to cut the lawn. And my father, God rest his soul, he was very big on you had to have straight lines when you're mowing the lawn. He wanted that look, right, of it just being nice, those aisles of the way the mower cuts the lawn.
Yankee Stadium.
And he would come home from work on Monday and he would berate me on how bad I cut the lawn, right? So finally, I'm like halfway during the summer, I got my paycheck, and on a Sunday night or whatever, or Saturday, I took out, $40, $50 and I put it on the table. I said, Dad, can we get someone to cut this lawn? Like, so I knew the concept of outsourcing when I was 15. And I literally said that. I said, we got to get someone else to do it. Because if you're not happy the way I'm doing it, let's get a pro in to cut this lawn. So he hires somebody, right? He takes me up on my offer. And full transparency, he didn't collect more money from me, but I guess he felt it was time, and I sent the message, and in his weird way, he got someone to come in and mow the lawns for us, right? Well, the first time this guy came and mowed the lawn, and when he finished, I looked out in the backyard and I started laughing because it was a crisscross. It looked like the guy who mowed was drunk, and there was lines all over the place and crossing paths, and I'm sitting there, and my mother's looking at me like, what's going on? I was like, I'm just waiting for Big Jerry to get home. Just waiting for him to get home. I want him to take a look at what's out here, right? And sure enough, it was. And he didn't say a word to that landscaper, right? It was only me that he beat up verbally on the precision cutting of the lawn. A professional did it. He didn't say boo. So I'm sorry, I interrupted with that story, but that's how much I did not want to cut the lawn.
Now the big question is, Paul, did that guy come back a second time?
He did, and my father lived with him. Although I have a funny story about that. We're really going off track. We had a story where my father hired a painter to paint the garage door. And the guy came, and my father was my buddy JD would say, what's the words I'm looking for? He was like the foreman, right? He's always looking, and he's telling you how to do the job, even though he's never done the job, right? My father was always like that. So the guy came, and he was painting the garage door. He had the cloths out, and he had the rollers and the paint, and he's painting. And my father's coming out. The spot here. The guy wasn't here an hour. The guy dropped the brush and said, "Mister, I'm not working for you anymore." And he got in his car and he drove away and never came back.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's
firing the client. Sometimes it's got to happen.
So you asked if people come back. It depends. It depends how far my father used to push them. The lawnmower guy let it go. The painting guy, he just was watching them like a hawk, right? And kind of that lawn chair on the in the driveway, kind of watching type of thing. And the guy was just like, "I'm not doing this, right? It's not worth any amount of money." So I know we really digressed, but I love my dad, and we had our ups and downs. But I think back on some of those stories, it makes me laugh.
I think we have a letter to the editor in response to this article that we were talking about here.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe we send them a link to the podcast. That would be
There you
kind of
go.
cool. So, well, we really went off topic there. So I'm going to pull us back in. And the next story is really in line with what we're talking about today, starting a family and your personal finances. So it's 12 budgeting tips for new parents. And we're going to dig into a lot of these today. But the highlights, right? And it's by U.S. News and World Report. It's an older story, October 28th, 2019, but some things never change. And a lot of the things, it's a long article, but it covers a lot of things that we want to talk about. Understanding how much you want to save. They do sneak in like a sponsored speak to the right financial advisor for you. It's crazy how they're able to make it even look like it's part of the story. Factor in nursing and feeding expenses, account for childcare, temporary loss of income, health insurance coverage. Don't jump and buy a bigger car. Register wisely for gifts, borrow, swap, and buy used. Save on diapers and other daily essentials. Use right financial tools. Sign up for life insurance. So that's it. The podcast's done. Everyone have a great. So Jody, what'd you think of this? I think that it said it all, but we'll jump into those topics. What'd you think of this article? I thought it was pretty comprehensive.
Great article, great segue into what we're going to talk about, and then we might as well go from this right into the podcast. I've often said jokingly and in a self-deprecating way, because this was me too, new parents are the most gullible consumers on the planet. You can stick the word safety on any product, and a new parent will buy it. It doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah, I have a bunch of old I have a bunch of packaged, like still didn't take it out of the package, a bunch of the safety gear that's sitting in the garage somewhere. We just never got around to putting it up. But, my current situation when it comes to this, of course, we've talked about this on past podcasts. I have 2 kids, and that's where we're stopping. So we have the 2 kids. It's been great, a boy and a girl, 16 and 9 at this point. I remember when we first started thinking about having kids, and once we found out one was on the way, our world changed drastically, right? So I think I tried to do all the right things at the time, getting life insurance in place, drafting our wills, and setting up our 529 plans, which we've talked about in previous podcasts. So you could go back in time and listen to some of those tips and tricks and advice and mistakes that we made when it came to those types of things. In addition, we made our condominium that we had at the time work for the baby. And my wife was able to take almost a full year off of maternity, which impacted our budget a bit, but we were braced for that reality, and we thought it was very important for her to take as much time as possible before she would have to go back to work. So I said a lot there. There was a lot going on. Jody, what's your I know your current situation. You have your 2 kids. Can you elaborate a little bit more on your situation?
Yeah, we got the 2 kids just like you, Paul, and the way I say it is the bedrooms are full and we are done. But I've told this story before. The arrival of our first child, our son, made me get a written budget together. You sort of have that moment, and it's a wonderful moment. And every dad, let's just talk about the dads here for a moment. Every dad has that moment where they look at that kid and that light switch flips. At least that's the way it was for me. I can say clearly that I was a different person in the 3 seconds from the moment I saw that face. Bang! I just became a new person. And your priorities realigned. Your wiring gets completely redone. It's just you're a brand new person. But then you get home, and so you get into that rhythm, and suddenly you start to see, oh, I got to get my act together here if you don't have it together already. And so in getting that written budget together, I quickly realized that we were in major financial trouble. We had this giant house, which of course we bought before we had the kid, because we had, the 2 salaries and lots of money flying around, and we're like, sure, let's buy a big house. And when you start to add in the expense of that first child, and then maybe even that second child, you have that uh-oh moment, especially when you write down that budget and you realize that, at least we did, that you can't afford that big house anymore. So we cut our expenses. We paid off lots of debt. We swore off unfunded expenses. And by that, I mean, if you don't have the cash coming in to cover the expenses, an unfunded expense means it's going to go on a credit card and you're going to have to pay for it later with interest. It took several years for us to right our financial ship. We had a second child along the way, our daughter. Now we're in a place, and I think this is 8 or 9-ish years later, we have an airtight budget that we do not violate. That part of that budget is regular savings for kids, both long-term in the form of college and short-term in terms of funding things like back-to-school clothes and athletic, sign-ups, sports sign-ups and camps and things like that. But along that way, and it's a very long path, we've developed new habits and new ways of living. And I think that's the most important thing that you can do when you're a parent. Just like your internal wiring gets switched, the moment you see that face, like I said, you've got to rewire your financial habits as well to make sure, and this is the mom's and the dad's job, but here we are dads talking, you've got to rewire your financial habits to make sure that your family is going to do well for the long haul. And that's what we realize, in the rearview mirror, that what we needed to change, our habits and how we live and what that costs. And it is amazing looking back at how much money we spent on stuff that I can't even remember buying, or I look back now and know we absolutely did not need that thing, but we bought it anyway. And so if you can get your arms wrapped around that as quickly as possible before you have kids, and even more so after, the better off you're going to be.
Yeah, you triggered a lot of memories. Man, I'm looking back. It was a long road, and I forgot about one story that I had to trigger was, I went through the same moment. Prior to my son being born, I was a big advocate of, we're both going to go back to work. The kids are going to go into childcare, which is what we did. But when my son was born, I did have that moment where I did talk to my wife, and it was like a light switch. It switched, and I said, wow, it kind of, we're in this condo. We bought the condo at the right time, I'll say. We thought it was the top of the market, but it was nowhere near the top of the market at that time. And it was a 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo, and we used 1 bedroom as an office. And I had a conversation with my wife, and I said, well, maybe we can, get rid of the furniture, the office furniture, and turn it into his room, and we could just get a couple of laptops and a printer in the corner of the bedroom and in our bedroom and be done, right? Maybe we just stay here and you don't have to go back to work. And we had a discussion on it, and at the end, she wanted to continue working, which was great. There's no right or wrong answer. Let's also put it that way. When it comes to working outside the home or being a stay-at-home mom, there's all kinds of different ways to do it. We've talked about this in previous podcasts. There's a book out there called The 2-Income Trap, which talks about this in depth, but there's no right or wrong, right? It's whatever you guys decide out there, right, in your own personal family. But we decided that my wife is going to continue to work. I'm going to continue to work, and we're going to go through kind of the new, the normal of nowadays, right? Not the 1950s where one parent stays home and takes care of the kids, and if you could do it, that's great, but we just weren't going to do it. So that meant that, and we did not rush out and buy a new car to accommodate the baby, but we did go and buy a new house to accommodate the baby. And the reason why was my wife's commute and my commute, it was too long from where we were to go back and forth. It was just too long of a commute. So we needed to cut that commute down by at least half. And that's what we did. So we moved to Lower Westchester from Upper Westchester and bought the house. So I'll never forget that holiday, that Christmas. We're at my in-laws at the dinner table, and the baby was going through the childcare, like he just started childcare, and he had snot bubbles coming out of his nose that were massive, right? Because the kids pick up everything at the childcare, right? And I remember my mother-in-law sitting there, and she's like, "Oh, it's too bad, Shelly can't stay home with the baby." And I just sort of got up and I said, listen, that offer was put on the table. It was rejected. And now we have this house and no one's stopping anything. Right. And not, and when I look back at that moment, I thought that we were trapped, which we probably weren't. But in my mind, I was. And if I really look back on it, we probably could have sold the house again and bought another condo, right? Yes, there's transactional costs and stuff like that, but that's something to keep in mind, that all these decisions are two-way door decisions. So whether you're upgrading, downgrading, whatever that is, yes, there's a cost to it, but none of it is like a prison sentence. None of it's a one-way door decision where you make the decision, now you're stuck for life. That's something to keep in mind, right? Because for us, we probably, if you turn back time, if Shelly decided to quit her job, let's say 2 years later, well, we would have probably sold the house and bought a smaller house, right? Or we would have went back to a condo, right? Whatever would have made the most sense. But for us, it was a two-way door decision. So I think with that, we'll jump into some of the topics for this week, right? So planning. So we touched upon that already. So Jody, what are your thoughts when it comes to planning and having that baby? So you just found out, hey, here's number one, or oh, better yet, okay, number two's on the way. What's the planning involved from your? Because I could give you my perspective. I'd love to hear your perspective on planning.
Well, I think the first thing that you need to approach this with is a sense of not jumping into any decisions, right? And let's take scenario number one, baby number one. I think generally people might be inclined to say, oh, we're having a baby, we need more space. You don't need more space. Babies stay wherever you put them. So you don't need a bigger car, except for maybe all the crap that you might have to bring with the baby. But you don't need like a bigger car because you're not going to pick up a soccer team for another 10 years. You don't need a gigantic house because the baby can sleep in the corner of your bedroom. You're fine in the apartment that you've got. It's that kind of stuff. Don't jump into this upsizing spree just because you've got this little teeny tiny baby coming into your world. I would recommend, with my own experience, focusing on that baby, focusing on the new family that you have. You're going to spend plenty of money on other stuff. Don't jump into these big decisions like, we got to get more space, we got to get more stuff, we got to get more. Hold on, just cool the jets and figure out what you need one small step at a time.
Yeah, I think for me, and I'll kind of give a little more clarity. So the decision, okay, the baby's born, we're going to move. We were actually planning on.
It was different. You said it was different because it was a commute decision.
Yeah, it was commute driven. For us, it was commute driven.
So that would be whether you had a baby or not, right? That's a different type of a decision.
Well, I'll tell you why. It was based on the baby because the idea was, what if the daycare calls and there's an issue? Then you have to, you don't want to have an hour between you and your baby, kind of thing.
Fair enough.
And that was, looking back, we could have that probably wasn't as critical looking back. But once again, it's a new baby, right? So you don't know, right? Like, you just don't know what you're doing to a degree. But for us, we had planned on moving closer when the new baby, while we were having the baby, right? We were thinking about these things ahead of time. That was the other thing from my advice. Just as soon as you know, start planning. Start that plan, start that budget, start that checklist, whatever it is, baby furniture, life insurance, whatever that is, right? That's what I started to do. And we had those conversations early and often about, okay, we were looking for houses while she was pregnant, right? We just couldn't find one at the time. And we also knew that, so it wasn't a snap decision. Oh, baby's born, we're going to go. I don't want to make it sound like that. But we continued with our plan because our plan was always, just when my son was born, I said, well, maybe you could stay home. But then it wasn't, it just wasn't something that we felt together was going to be the right choice. So we decided, that we're going to continue with our plan to find a new house. And with that new house, to your point, Jody, we did look at houses that were much bigger with a much bigger mortgage payment. And we didn't pull the trigger on those. We've talked about that in previous podcasts. So you don't need this big palatial, expense busting mortgage payment every month on top of the new baby, right? So you have to make sure you're buying within your means and you're planning within your means. So that would be my kind of advice coming from a planning perspective. The next topic, we're going to shift gears a little bit. Baby furniture shopping. I remember my story was, our son came a week and a half early. The crib, the changing table, all those things were in boxes in our dining room. They weren't even close to being assembled. And God bless my in-laws. They came to my rescue. Once the baby was born, they both came to the condo and helped me put together all the furniture, clean. My mother-in-law, she's the best. She brought her own cleaning supplies, brought her own vacuum. She didn't trust any of our equipment or any of our supplies. She brings her own stuff, and this place, it smelled like a hospital room when that room was put up. So we put the crib up, we put everything in place, we moved stuff around, we kept it as kind of an office / baby's room, and it worked out okay. So, but baby furniture shopping was interesting. Now it's probably way different. We actually had to go to the store, these things called stores, and we actually had to look at cribs and changing tables in a store. We didn't point and click at Amazon or at Walmart or at Babies R Us, or I'm not plugging those companies. Just that's the norm nowadays. Is you go online, oh, that looks pretty, send it. Oh, I don't like it, send it back. It seems to be very interchangeable. But we had to go to the store and look at the furniture. And the one thing, I guess, recommendation-wise for us was we looked for good quality furniture. Not the top end and not the cheap, but something in the middle that was sturdy. You kind of I liked going into the store and kind of touching the crib or touching the changing table, make sure it didn't wobble, right? That it was sturdy. Sturdiness. I guess that would be my basic sturdiness, and that ties to safety. And you could buy baby furniture at a reasonable price. You don't have to overdo it. But, the key things were the crib, the changing table for us. It was a rocking chair to go back and forth, which I think we got from my brother. So he gave that to us. Thanks, Dave. And one of those diaper genies. We had the off-brand one, but it worked just the same, right? So, Jody, what's your take when it came to baby furniture?
Of course, you're not going to buy something that's unsafe. So safety, number one, yes. I agree with you. Paul, you want something that's sturdy, something that's going to last. The crib, the baby set, if you will, that we bought, which was a crib. I think it was a small dresser, and it was that rocker, that chair. Spend money on that chair, man, because you're going to be sitting in that chair taking care of that baby for a year. That chair is going to be your best friend. So spend a little money on that chair. But obviously, I agree with you. You don't have to buy super top end unless you can afford it in cash. You can buy something that's reasonable. We also bought something that lasted through 2 kids, right? Because don't forget, again, unless you can buy it in cash, the baby doesn't know what color the bedroom set is. Only you do. So, our son and our daughter both had a standard brown wood colored, baby set. It doesn't have to be white, and it doesn't have to be pink, and it doesn't have to be rainbow colored, and you can paint that yourself if you want. Don't overspend on this stuff, I guess, is the point. Get what's going to work for you, and get what's going to last, especially if you're going to go through a couple of kids. And you should go through a couple of kids, I think, with baby furniture. It should last that long that you can, you buy the one set and you can hand it along as you need it. The other thing I just want to touch on, when it comes down to things like shopping and buying, and this is where dads, we need to get a little strategic. And I do not mean to be disrespectful here at all when I say this to the moms. This is big stuff for the moms. This is really important for the moms. They want to feel like they're doing this right. And of course, we all want to do it right, right? Dads, this is where you need to take a step back. This is where you need to not die on the hill if you don't have to. It's really important to let the moms, let your wives make the decision here. It's your job to help figure it out, but you got to let them take the lead here, because this is where they're going to draw a lot of their initial mom identity from, and you got to let them have it. So and you can make the decision together. It's not like I said, it's not meant to be disrespectful to anybody, but you got to let them take the lead here.
Yeah, I know we're spending a lot of time on baby furniture, but you triggered a bunch of thoughts, and one was, yes, we picked generic colors, right, and we did pick furniture that would last. And it's funny, So my daughter, we had a son. I had my son first, then my daughter, and even the toys were reusable, right? So my daughter found herself, even though we bought her dolls and all kinds of girly stuff, she would gravitate towards the older brother's old Thomas the Train and gravitate towards different toys that he had, whether they were Hot Wheels or trucks, right? So all this stuff is reusable. Those are some great call outs in terms of making sure that you kind of keep the colors neutral and buy stuff that will take you through 1, 2, or X number of kids that you have, which I think is very important to kind of think about when you're going through this whole process.
I'll tell you one too. I just remembered. Not only did that baby set, the crib, the dresser, and the chair, not only did that work, the chair has been handed off to all the cousins. So there's 6 kids who have been raised in that rocker chair that we bought. Or maybe it's not 6, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
More than just our 2. It's been handed off to cousins.
You talk about value.
Right? And the crib and the rest of the stuff, the dresser, and I think there was like a night table or some other kind of thing. We sold that. It went through 2 kids, and then we even sold it on top of it, so we made some money back. So it lasted 5+ years. And on top of that, we sold it, and now some other kid is sleeping in it somewhere. So if you buy quality, you don't have to break the bank, but buy some quality, have it go through all your kids, and then sell it when you get to the end of the line.
Yeah, that's so funny you say that, because we got the bassinet from Hey Ken and Holly, Ken and Holly's family. Like we were going to go buy one, and we were at a barbecue, and Holly's mom was like, "Nope, I got it. Just Deirdre has it now. We're going to get it back from her and give it to you." And and we gave it back, and they probably gave it to somebody else. So that's probably a great point, is kind of this whole passing the stuff around. You may have family members that have different pieces that are great and that you want to use. The trick is, so it's not too old, but if it's very functional and it's safe, hey, it's worth picking it up, throwing it in the back of the hatchback or whatever you got to do, or rent a pickup truck to go get it and pass this stuff around. I think we sold all our stuff too, Jody, and it was interesting. And on another note, when our second child was born, she came a little early. Same thing happened. The crib, changing table, all unassembled in the basement. My in-laws came again, saved the day, cleaned her room. And while baby was at the hospital doing okay with mom, we built her room out. So thanks again to my in-laws on that one. So the next one is, I guess, ties to it, right? Getting the house ready, which, is part of its furniture. I guess the rest of it is some of the safety stuff we talked about, the outlet covers and buying those different pieces and budgeting for those pieces. You don't have to go crazy, but we did have our share of baby gates, and we did have our share of little outlet protectors. These are all things you could do yourself. Nothing super complex or complicated. Stuff you could do with standard, screwdriver. You might need a drill, but a lot of this stuff assembles pretty quickly. Some of the stuff is a waste. I don't know if we actually used the toilet cover clip that we had. I don't think the baby was actually interested. Like you see those commercials where the kid goes in.
That's what I was talking about.
Yeah, and that one I don't think we ever used. But like the outlet covers,
it's
the stuff
thing
that's
on the bathroom
dangerous.
Called a door.
Yeah.
If the kid can't get into the bathroom, you don't need the toilet cover clip.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to get the stuff that you want to get the stuff that prevents danger, not the stuff that prevents humor. If you walk in and your kid's drinking out of the toilet, that's kind of funny, right? Now you throw it up on YouTube, right? Oh, it's funny, but you don't want to, you don't want to not have a gate there and he tumbles down the steps on you, right? So I think that's the kind of thing to keep in mind. Jody, what are your thoughts when it comes to getting the house ready?
Yeah, I totally agree, and you're right. There's something else here. This baby, you hit it there, Paul. This new person in your life, they're going to provide you with some of the biggest laughs and some of the greatest memories you will ever have in your life, to the point where your brain will just off-shift memories that you thought were so important from before to fill it with the memories that you're going to have with your kids. This is another one of those places, getting the house ready, where dad, you need to take a back seat to mom. Mom wants to wrap the house in bubble wrap, right? Nothing is going to harm her child. That's her instinct. That's in her DNA. And dad is kind of like, let him get hurt a little bit. He'll do it once. He'll never do it again.
Toughen him up.
Right? So you got to, if she wants the corner covers for the coffee table, get them. If she wants the outlet covers or the My wife's big thing was the straps behind every dresser. It was, and you know what? You have to do it. You just got to do it. You just got to throttle down and be like, okay, that's what we're going to do. It's cool. It's a small price to pay for peace in the house.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But in the same breath, you do have to take some of the safety stuff seriously. The gates, super important. If you have stairs in your house, you must have gates. Period. End of story. As soon as they get a little more mobile, and they're trucking around on their hands and knees, you gotta clamp up those base cabinets. They can't get in those base cabinets unless there's nothing harmful in there. And even if there is something, and I mean, even something as seemingly harmless as a pot lid might be harmful to a 1-year-old who's trucking around, and pulling stuff out. Because they're gonna fling it. Right? It's not just going to like come tumbling out of the cabinet, maybe, tap them in the foot. They're going to pick it up. They're going to throw it across the room. They're going to break a window. Or break their own head. I mean, the stuff that can happen is just amazing. So, be reasonable about all this stuff, defer to your wife on all this stuff, and do what you think is right and best.
Yeah, that all makes sense. And I think I want to preface that between the baby furniture shopping, the preparation, the house, you could probably get away with a budget of $1,000 to $2,000, maybe, right? So when people think about the daunting expense, and you pointed it out earlier, Jody, it's probably not that crazy when it comes to those kind of material pieces, right? I think it's when you get into the child care and the college savings and those types of things is where you start to you're really going to have to save and kind of really plan ahead. But I think when you're buying the actual bits that you need for the house, probably $1,000 to $2,000 will get you all the safety gear plus the crib and the changing table. Would you agree with that at this point?
I think regardless of what it costs, I think you don't have to buy it all in one shot.
That's true. Yes.
It's buy it according to what the stage the kid is at, right? And like I said before, when the baby come home from the hospital, the baby's staying wherever you put the baby. The baby is not getting into the cabinets at week 8.
Yep.
Right? So you don't have to buy locks for your cabinets right away.
Yep.
You don't even have to buy baby gates right away. You don't have to buy those things until they're at that stage, or the week before they're going to be at that stage. Because then once you put those things up, they're going to be up for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And
we had baby gates for years.
Yeah, we took all ours down.
Yeah, so,
yep.
But the point being, you don't have to do this all in one shot. Do it according to where the baby is.
Yeah, and some of these things are nice to have, right? You don't need a changing table, right? You could use the bed, So to your point, bassinet and, as budgets permit, crib. If you can get the changing table, that's great. If not, no problems. You don't need a diaper genie. Garbage pail works fine. There's a lot of different ways to do these.
Never had a diaper genie. We always had a garbage can.
Yeah.
I did not want that stuff hanging around in the house. I don't care what thing you're putting it in. I wanted it outside.
Yeah. Well, I guess on that note, we're going to shift gears to we'll talk a little bit about college savings. So for us, I wound up the first year he was born, opened up the 529 plan in my state, and I committed to a fixed amount going forward, which has worked for us. There have been some years where compensation-wise, it's been a little lean for me, so I've had to make some adjustments there in terms of, okay, I couldn't hit that target every year. I try to sacrifice to hit that target, but some years it just wasn't able to do so. But slow and steady wins the race. So my big recommendation here is the year the baby's born, open up the 529 plan, put some amount of money in it to get it started, and then plan to consistently add to it over time, whatever that methodology is. Jody, what's your take when it comes to college savings plans?
100% agreed. And nobody knows how much college is going to cost other than it's going to cost a lot. And time is your friend, right? So you don't have to put, name your price. You don't have to put $1,000 a year in, or $10,000 a year in, or $1 million a year in. You got to put in what you can afford every single paycheck. I think that's the best thing you can do to start out. Just get it open, get it started, fund it at a very reasonable level right in the beginning, have it build and build and build and build. And then when you do run into those times where like, hey, you got a lot of money, pop it in there. Inevitably gifts come along from family and friends and, monetary gifts. Take that money, unless you need it to buy diapers or food or something like that for the kid, throw it into that account. So you have a fiduciary responsibility on behalf of your children to do the best you can with what you've got. And that's why I say use time as your friend. If it's $20 a paycheck, fine, it's $20 a paycheck. Do the math over the course of 17 years. You'll have more than you would have if you hadn't put anything in there. Or if you started 3 years after they went to college, before they went to college. Time is your friend. Use time as your friend, and also recognize that you are in charge of this. No one else is going to do it for you. And if you can't do it, that's okay too. Do what you can.
Yeah, I think we've done an episode on college savings, and we've done several on college savings. And I think all those points you talk about, I totally agree with. The two things I'm going to add are the frequency. We do it yearly, so we do lump sum yearly. So it all depends whether it's weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, or yearly. Just make sure you hit those targets if you can. The second piece is, now that my son is 16, I recently made an adjustment to take and move some of that money out of the more higher risk funds and put him into a lower risk fund, right? So I want to preserve the capital and preserve the savings that's in there because he's getting close to college age, right? 1 or 2 years away. So
yeah,
you want to be careful. So you have to kind of watch the plan from time to time. So that's my last bit of advice on college savings plans. But listen back to some of our previous podcasts on that. And speaking of listening back, life insurance and wills. Term life, get a will. Term life, get a will. Term life, get a will. Jody, what's your take on life insurance and wills?
That's it. Not much more to say. You need life insurance to take care of the people who you leave behind when you die. You need a will to make sure that all that stuff is clear, and clear instructions for people for when you die. Don't leave anybody in the lurch trying to make their own decisions on what they think you might have wanted. You're absolutely right, Paul. Get life insurance, get a will.
Yep. And the next topic we'll touch upon is childcare. And if you listen to last week's podcast with our special guest, Will Powell, Will will tell you that he paid, maybe it might be a world record, he paid 18 years of consistent childcare every month. So that was amazing to me because he's got 4 kids spaced apart just enough where he has childcare in his life for 18 years straight. And listen back on that podcast, and he'll tell you about that. So that's an interesting one. I could tell you that when my son's childcare ended, because our kids are a bit more spaced apart, and then when my daughter's childcare ended, the big number every month, it was a relief to a degree. And like I told the administrator at the childcare at the school that our kids went to, I'm really going to miss the school. I'm not going to miss the payment. So just be prepared that if both parents or a single parent, whatever, are working outside the home and you're going to have to get childcare, it is expensive. That's probably the biggest expenditure that you're going to have to worry about from years 1 through 8, maybe, right? Is making sure that you have the right level of child, at least 1 through 5. And then they start kindergarten in first grade, second grade, but that 1 through 5, childcare is going to be a big piece of that. So you're going to have to do your research. You're going to have to do your budgeting, and that's going to be a big part of your financial picture. Jody, what's your take on childcare?
Yep, fully agreed. Be prepared for what you're going to spend on childcare. If you're both going to go back to work right away, you need to start it from the get. If one's home, you still might need a degree of childcare. And Paul, to your point, even when they get into kindergarten and first grade and they're at school all day, there's still before care and after care. So you're still going to be spending.
And summer camps.
Absolutely. I mean, we have 2 kids, however many years of childcare that was. I definitely could have sent at least one of them to a very exclusive private college for what I spent on childcare for the 2 kids.
Yep, and maybe we'll elaborate on that topic in more depth. I'm not sure if we covered childcare as one of the topics, but maybe that's something we could do a podcast on in the future and really dig deep. Some of these topics we've dug deep into, and others maybe we should take a look at digging deeper into that as a result of today's podcast. The last topic is budgeting, and Jody, I'm going to leave that to you because we've talked talked about this in the past. I loved your methodology. I love the way you take the approach to budgeting. You walk the walk and talk the talk. I do my high level, like we've always said. I do it at the macro level. You do it more at the micro level. Give us a little bit of your insights as it comes to planning and budgeting for, or budgeting for the new family.
Well, I appreciate that, Paul, but I did this out of fear. I did this out of total panic, where I started to pay bills and there wasn't enough money left. I was like, uh-oh. And so I started putting it all. Now I'm a little OCD, so I put it all in a spreadsheet. And the spreadsheet got very complicated very fast. But the whole thing is that I got it all down on a piece of paper, and you create the formulas and everything, and you punch in a number and everything flows. And you've got a similar spreadsheet, Paul.
Yes.
You just got to get on top of it. However you do it, you just got to get on top of it, because once you become a dad, you are responsible. You're responsible for the whole family, right? And that's not to say that the mom isn't responsible. You are responsible. This is your deal. You raised your hand, stood up, and volunteered for this. You've got to do this right. Or at the very least, you've got to do this to the best of your ability. We're all going to make mistakes. That's fine. People are going to fall down. They're going to get bumps and bruises, and they're going to learn, and that's fine too. But don't willingly wander into the middle of the highway asking to get hit. And that's what you need to have a budget for. All this stuff that we've just gone through, you can see how extraordinarily expensive having a child is. It's totally worth it. It's totally worth it. It's the best money you'll ever spend in your life. But if you do it sort of naively, you're gonna get tagged pretty hard. And the problem with that is that everyone else is going to go down with you. So do not have your act together when you get into this. Make sure you get it written down. Make sure you budget it. I like to budget every single paycheck, what's coming in, what's going out, where's the money flowing, what's coming down the pike, what's going to recur every month, what recurs every quarter. Break big payments into smaller ones as best you can. Reduce the amount of surprise in your financial life as possible, and just like I said, get on top of it, because this is the best thing you're ever going to do, and so do it well.
Very cool. And I think with that, we'll jump into the summary recap, and I think you put a nice point to it. Planning and budgeting is key, at least in my opinion, so I'm going to kind of leave it short and sweet. Jody, what's your summary from today? What's your takeaway, or what's your recap? Yeah,
I think I stole my own thunder. This is the greatest thing you're ever going to do, right? This is the best thing we've ever done, Paul.
Yes.
I think I can speak for you. This is the best thing we've ever done. And to do it well gives you even more satisfaction. Do it in a way when you put your head down on the pillow at night, you go, yeah, okay, I did it. And there are going to be days that you just totally screwed it up. But take the bull by the horns. Go get it. Get your budget written down. Get your financial future planned out. Do the best job that you can to be the best dad that you can. I think that would be where my summary recap ends up.
Very cool and well put. So, Jody, I thoroughly enjoyed our discussion today, and I'm personally looking forward to the next one. Thanks, everyone, for downloading our podcast. If you have any questions or comments, please email us at financialdads@gmail.com or check us out on Facebook. Just go to financialdads.com. So with that, this is Paul and Jody reminding you, managing finances can be stressful, but that's why the Financial Dads are here to help you plan for success. Have a good one, everybody. Be well, and thank you.